It's no secret that photography can be an extremely expensive hobby, from the cameras to the lenses to the variety of filters that you're going to have, to even tripods, bags, etc. etc. Everything comes at a cost and it's not cheap nowadays. But for those just starting out, you don't need to spend thousands of pounds on a camera and a lens and then a variety of filters and a nice decent bag to carry it all around in, if you're just going to drop it after a couple of months because you're not finding it as enjoyable as you thought you first did. Well, that's fine. You don't need to, believe it or not, buy the newest and best thing anytime it gets advertised. I'm one for it myself. I always go, oh, I like that thing, especially when it comes to Leica and their £6,000 Q3. But I will buy it one day because I have a compulsive obsession. But you don't need to, because cameras are carried around in your pocket nowadays, and for those starting off, phones and stuff like that can be just as good. So how do you start photography, and more specifically street photography, without spending any money? So you're going to want to first start off by identifying your needs and then your wants. So what you actually need to take photos, and then what's a nice to have. Scrap all the nice to haves and just focus on your needs to begin with. The biggest need, you need a camera to take photos. And like I said in the intro, your phones are a perfect starting point. Everyone has them, and the majority of people have the brand new, nice looking phones with the multiple lenses and the pretty decent cameras. Now, the smaller phone sensors don't match up to an actual camera, but that being said, starting out, phones, and I think anyone can admit it now, are really holding their own when it comes to photography. I've took some really good photos on a phone, and they're just snapshots when walking around random cities or even London, where I'm based. Now, I think I am going to go into more phone photography in detail in another video. I'm actually thinking of just taking my phone only for a London photo walk one day and just seeing what results I get. I'll probably be pretty sad if I miss shots, but we'll see how viable the phone actually is for a full day street photography in an upcoming video. But one thing I will say is a phone is a lot less invasive than a big-bodied camera with a big old lens when you're trying to shoot a subject up close. A lot of people are just going to think you're on your phone and not pay a blind bit of notice to you, because everyone, especially in a touristic city like London, is just going to seem like they're on their phones as well. Everyone's taking photos around a major city, and you're not going to be noticed whatsoever. So one last thing before we go over to the other needs of photography is really that your phones can shoot RAW now. And that is a big step up from phones of previous years, because RAW is a great way of bringing back any of your errors when shooting a photo, because you can bring it all back in post-processing. So a RAW file is basically an uncompressed image, whereas a JPEG, what phones normally shoot, has a compressed down, smaller file size because it wants to store as much as possible on your phone's inbuilt storage. RAW, you get a much larger file size, but everything is uncompressed, meaning if you've overexposed a shot or you've missed the color, like the white balance and stuff like that, you can easily bring that back in post and you won't lose any clarity or quality. Whereas if you did that to a JPEG, you'll probably get really iffy results. Next up, you've got the photo and you've probably shot them in RAW, so you're going to want to edit them a little bit. Colours may seem a little flat, you might want to add some vibrance, you might want to crop, zoom, change all these sorts of things into your photo to give it your own unique style. And I edit a lot of my photos, quite heavily at some points, but it gives my own unique style to the image, and I like that. I like the editing process as much as I like the actual photography aspect of things. And I use purely mobile apps to edit my photos, and that is Lightroom Mobile, but that costs. So we don't want that if you're starting photography for free. So there are plenty of other free alternatives. One that I used was Snapseed, and I've used that before in the past as well, but I basically took the same RAW file on Lightroom Mobile and Snapseed, which is also a mobile app for Android and iOS, and I edited them. I took 5 minutes to edit the same photo, and it came out with pretty similar results, and the actual things that you can do on Snapseed for absolutely nothing is quite impressive. Now, you don't get the fine-tune adjustments that you do on Lightroom Mobile, and it surely isn't as easy to sync across from one device to another because everything's synced with Adobe Cloud on Lightroom, but the features for a free app is actually really quite impressive. But there's obviously plenty of free alternatives out there, and one thing I would recommend if you can is use free trials for things. be sure to give Lightroom a free trial because it is absolutely incredible for what it does. And there's tons of AI features that you can use in Lightroom now to AI reduce your noise and stuff like that, and auto adjust your white balance, all these sorts of things to make the image look really good. And you can use other presets from Adobe Cloud, so other user generated presets, to give it its own style, and basically does all the editing for you, and you might find a preset that you really like. So you've got the camera, i.e. your phone, that's been sitting in your pocket for ages and you've just used it to gather boring old pictures of family dinners, and now you've got the editing software by using free trials or free apps on the App Store. Now you just need to find locations that you want to shoot to go out and get good street photography images. For me, I live just a few minutes outside of central London, so it's really easy for me to get there, and obviously, in my opinion and many others, it's one of the best cities in the world to shoot street photography. But you might not live near anything major or a major tourist attraction or anything like that, but that doesn't mean that you can't get good street photography. I've been to the smallest of villages and found what would be a really boring scene, but the lighting was good and the subjects that walked through it made the picture quite interesting and quite good. And you can do that in any location. You know, you can walk down your own street and find something that you want to shoot, and if you're proud of that photo, that's all that matters. If you're looking to find more places around you though, go to YouTube, go to Instagram, find street photographers around your area and look up their sort of work that they're doing and the locations they're going to. For example, if you're in London or around London, I released a video showing my route around London and the photos that I take around there. You can watch that if you haven't already. Or if you live in New York, find a New York street photographer or stuff like that. As I go traveling, I'll be making videos of the cities that I visit. But, you know, it's all those various different points and the locations that you need to find. And YouTube and Instagram are just a fountain of information that you can pick up. And it's not just information on locations, it's information on technique. Technique is the major thing that separates anyone taking a photo on their phone to an actual photographer. And the techniques that you can pick up work on a phone, work on anything, and you just need to know them. And I'm not one for, oh, you must abide by the rule of thirds, or you do this certain thing, otherwise your photos are going to look rubbish, because that's not true. But you need to know the basics. You need to know that, you know, if your image is super underexposed, you're not going to get a clear image. If you're using too high of an ISO, your image is going to be noisy. If you're using the wrong aperture, you know, you're not going to have the right depth of field. You need to know all those things, but it doesn't mean that you need to abide by them 100%, you know? So the TLDR of this whole topic is everyone's got a camera that can take really good photos in their back pocket, and everyone can use that to take great street photography images if they know the locations, good techniques, they have the patience, and they take the time to go out on a regular basis to improve their skill set. But it can all be done for free. You don't need a big camera with a big lens and all that sort of stuff. As you grow and as you progress, you're going to want those things. Starting off, everyone's got the best starting point. The best camera to have is the camera you've got with you, you know? And your phones come around with you all the time. You know, they don't leave your side the majority of the time. So a phone is a great starting point. Free editing software will make your photos unique and look far better than typical Instagram presets will. And knowing good techniques on how to take a good image and knowing the locations to go to get good scenery and good subjects, it'll improve your photography 100 times. If you do have a little money to spare though, you can always go on secondhand marketplaces like eBay, MPB, all that sort of stuff, and pick up a cheap camera body and lens and improve your photography that way. You can then learn how to manually focus, you can then learn how to manually control your aperture, all that sort of stuff, because as I've said before, your phone does a lot of that work for you. So if it was me and I was starting photography all over again, I started off with my phone, but then I wanted to progress even further, I'd invest in these first two things first, and that is a camera body and a lens. And then after that, I've manually worked out all my controls and I can work the camera like the back of my hand. I would then invest in a paid editing software like Lightroom or Luminar and all those other paid products that you can get. And I would work with those as much as possible, learn it like the back of your hand, and then you can put your own unique spin on things, because that's what makes your photos unique. You know, someone can look at a photo and be like, oh, that's a photo from such and such, because you can tell the style based on that image. And then if you've got more money lying around, you can buy one of my zines, because they're great. You can see my style printed in a book, and it's really good. and 100% would recommend, not biased at all. But other than that, you can do something for free too, and that's subscribe to this channel and like on my Instagram, because that's where you're going to see future videos and all of my upcoming photos that I've taken from here and around the world. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate your time. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.